Now, did they always have hay from the move, from when you first had the horses here up until today?
They always had hay, but not always free hay. When you have free hay, you need the big round bales. And in the beginning of the winter, we bought as much round bales as we could, but there was a shortage, and we went all the way from New York to Canada, and we had a hard time finding big round bales. We bought some bales, some smaller round bales from a local place, and then we ended up buying square bales. And you can't just put a square bale out there. You have to hand feed the square bale several times a day. But they were never without food. I mean, we're new here. We had really no idea where the sources are for hay. I mean, we looked all around, and everybody we called, oh yeah, we just sold our last batch, or we'll have some in the spring. But we managed to find some hay. Paid a lot of money for it, but they've been free feeding now, most of it. But there was a time when they didn't.
The only time they would not get it is because of competition. I mean, that did happen with some of the mares, and we have some hard keepers. But otherwise, hard keepers, which means they don't metabolize as well.
Apparently, when you cross over the border in New Hampshire, you are supposed to know all the New Hampshire rules. All of these horses have papers, they have health certificates. There was a lot of things going on this fall. We were working on the house, we were getting everything buttoned up for winter, we had the horses. It's one of those paperwork things that just wasn't at the top of our priority list, frankly. But all these papers all these horses have their papers. They are registered with the Arabian Horse Association. I think if they demanded to have all the papers on Monday, well, first of all, we couldn't get in the house, but we just moved and they're in a box somewhere in the garage.
The thing is, we feed them grain when we have it, which is several days a week. We don't have it every day, but as the expenses improve, we will have it every day. Come on, baby. But all these horses are very much loved, and they're trained, they're taken care of. They're all my companions. They are not livestock or a pen of chickens, or I don't want to insult anybody that has a pen of chickens because they know they love their chickens. But these are all good horses that I didn't want to let some of the big barns let their horses go to the auction 25 at a time. They're sold to the Mexican trippers. I chose to bring mine with me and go through it and get through this winter. We couldn't sell horses last year. The economy's terrible, and we have good trained horses, and I will not take them to a slaughter auction.
So it's not the issue that they're unhealthy, it's just the issue that the bureaucrats in the state vet office I guess might feel slighted because we didn't think about them first when we brought the horses here. We were thinking about the horses' welfare, not about the rules of the state. The only thing we heard about any of these laws were this SPCA guy telling us to have shelter, which we already had and we were in the process of building. The search warrant had three issues. We want to make sure the horses are healthy, we want to make sure there's adequate shelter, we want to make sure they have their health certificates. So the horses were healthy. Horses during the winter probably never have as much weight as you want to have on them.
Their metabolisms are all different.
You are so furry.
But I don't know if that's the issue. The vet was out here and he apparently thought that some of the horses were, I don't know what the problem is. Everything is sealed, they won't tell us anything. The officer who executed the search warrant was just giving me a courtesy call saying that 6 of the horses that were perfectly healthy but were taken because there wasn't adequate shelter, and I think there was, they say it wasn't. That's the problem with the word adequate. They're ready to come back. They passed their health tests, of course, and they can come back as soon as we can prove that we have adequate shelter. A horse must have a 10 by 10 covered, 3-sided covered stall available to him without being tied up. So does that mean that 100 square feet times 29 horses, do we need a 2,900 square feet of sheds? I think that's why they call it adequate instead of saying you must have 100 square feet per animal, because if you have one animal, you need 100 square feet maybe, just so they can turn around. But if you have 2 animals, you might need a 12 by 10. That's how we did it in Colorado. If you have 3 animals, you might need, say, a 15 by 10. They're herd animals, and they like being close to each other. So if it was a requirement, if you're breaking the law, if you have 5 horses and you don't have 500 square feet of shelter, I think most horse owners in this state would be put in jail. I think that's why it says adequate, but then the other side of that is adequate according to whose criteria. I guess we'll find out next week when they come by and inspect the property. I asked the officer, what about the other 6 horses? Because they took 12, I did the math, and he said nothing. He said, we'll have to get back to you on that. So they're still being secretive. We don't know where these horses are. We don't know if they're being taken care of or abused. I mean, who knows? So they could be starved, so that they can say, oh yeah, these horses were really starved by the time I got them. We have no idea. This is totally unacceptable. It's not open. There's no sunlight on this thing, and that's the biggest problem. I don't know how they could consider, the only contact we had about this law, that the SPCA person, a non-government person, told us verbally that there's shelter required. Well, what does that mean? You know, what are the rules? So didn't quote an RSA. We had to go search for that. But then the other 2 things on the search warrant, no notifications at all. The health of the animals and the fact that there were no health certificates. So, you know, the whole thing just kind of stinks. You know, it kind of smells like a vendetta. That's all I can say. That's the closest word I can come to it. So I hope we can resolve this thing quickly, and I hope that this incident will show that the SPCA is not necessarily out there to protect the animals. They do a lot of good. We've heard a lot of good stories about the SPCA breaking down puppy mills and taking care of animals in one way or another. This ain't one of those cases. This is a case of harassment because I refused to follow their rules, and that really upset them. Whenever I tried to talk to somebody, he said I was impeding the investigation. So I did as much as I could, and then I just started walking up and down the street. And I thought, well, I have nothing better to do. I'm going to start taking, pictures of all the license plates of the people, of the cars who were in the demilitarized zone. And there was no license plate on this trailer, and I went to the license plate of the truck, and yeah, that had regular New Hampshire license plates. And then I went to the next trailer, and it had no license plate on the trailer. And then I went to the truck, and there was the back license plate had gray duct tape over it. And I thought, that's kind of odd. I mean, I went to the front license plate because I needed a license plate number. And guess what? The front license plate was also taped over with duct tape. It seems to me that that's probably not legal. Don't you have to have your license plates? Isn't that why they're here? So I grabbed the first police officer I could find, and I asked him, officer, don't all vehicles on New Hampshire roads have to have their license plates in view at all times? He said, well, yes. And I said, well, there's a truck right back here that doesn't have its license plates visible. They're covered over with duct tape. And he looked me right in the eye and right in the camera and said, we'll deal with that later. I really wasn't satisfied with that answer, and so I went to the police chief and asked him. I notified him that there was a truck out on the road that didn't have its license plates on, and he dismissed me in about the same way as the other officer did. Okay. So they were both notified that there was a violation on their town roads and chose to do nothing about it. It's clear to me that they were ashamed of what they were doing. If they weren't able to say, hey, we have horses here, we have abused horses, we're proud to pick up these abused horses and help the government, help the SPCA to do their job to get rid of these abused horses, why would they be ashamed and cover up their license plates and cover up the name of their farm? It was just despicable.
These are my companions, they're my animals. Yeah, they have different metabolisms, different personalities, and we work with that. And sometimes we get behind, but we're always working on it.
These people should be ashamed. They work with a violent organization, and it was clear from looking at them. Whenever I looked at them, they covered their head.
We've been working as hard as we can, and
winter's just about over.
Winter's just about over.
It's gonna be
We had planned to participate in horse activities, have other people out here to participate with us.
Now, an interesting thing is that I just paid a lawyer a $20,000 retainer to fight this case. Well, that was the money set aside for the barn. So now there's not going to be a barn built this summer, and so now the horses are going to have to live through another winter like we just had. So there's the SPCA protecting horses. Thank you very much.